Hello, and today we're going to be having a look at one of the more successful Zero Festival decks that we were playing during our stream before, which was Generators, which is a little bit out of nowhere. We decided in the last hour of the stream to pick up the deck, and we surprisingly went on some pretty beefy win streaks. So the deck was performing exceptionally. I have modified it since then, as I'm sure you can tell from if you have watched that VOD or if you were live at the stream on Twitch, which you can follow by the way. Notifications are always sent out in the Discord, which is linked below. You'll notice that this is very different to the version of it we were playing during the stream, because I did a bit of research into it afterwards, found out some more cool combos and pieces, and it's been working out super well. So there is an awful lot to the deck that we would want to talk about. I will be running a detailed profile at the end, like I do in every single video. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to see anything more, have any suggestions, do feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll try to get around to every one of them that I can. I'm working on quite a few different decks that people have tasked me with that, you know, require URs and stuff that I simply don't have. For example, Evil Swarm will be coming up sometime soon. We want to have a look at Noble Knights, at the triangles, things like that. I do have them on a list. I will be trying to get to them as soon as I possibly can. It just takes a little while to build up the cards. Again, I'm not minted. I don't have every single UR in the game. My pockets are as shallow as everyone else's, so it does take a little bit of time. So the Generator deck then, as a rough sort of summary, what it does, it spams out boss monsters, and they're literally boss monsters. That's the whole point of the deck you're playing. Of course, each of your main Generator monsters are in fact their own boss. Har negates Utgarda with Banish, Hela revives, Mardale searches. They all pop up their own individual times. Another one that does that could come up if you wanted to play it would be this guy, Duvelgus. Duvelgus is good because he can summon them from your hand, which you normally cannot do. How are you summoning them? Using the field spell. So the whole deck is centered around the field spell, searchable through Pathfinder, through Trap Trick, because Boss Fight will search for it. So Boss Fight, Trap Trick searches Boss Fight. Then Generator can take advantage. There's a whole load of card advantage here, lots of searching. You will almost always have your field spell, and even if you don't, you'll normally have a play to go into. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to see more, subscribe, keep an eye out for the notifications. You know, it doesn't cost you anything, it really does help me out, so I would appreciate it. And let's get into game number one. Alright, getting into game number one, we are going first, and we do have the field spell in our opening hand, set a couple of cards. That's typically what you'll be doing turn one. Now, our field spell is pretty cool because anytime your opponent adds a card to their hand, once per turn you get to summon a Generator monster from your deck. So basically whenever your opponent draws for turn, that satisfies the condition for Generator boss stage. It'll summon a Generator monster from your deck, and then during your opponent's turn, if you summon a Generator, you summon out tokens to all of your available monster zones. So you'll summon out 4 tokens. The Trap Trick also, because we don't need the boss stage, we are just going to grab Imperm, because why not? We're going to ask this Duality, purely because if he is playing something like Floowandereeze, we don't want to be doing anything rash. We are going to tribute one of our tokens to activate the effect of this guy. So this is the one you will normally summon off of your field spell, the Lopter. He can basically tribute one of your Generators to summon out another Generator from the deck. So you would go into him because he also passively boosts up all your monsters by 1k attack and defense. So you summon him off the field spell, and then this guy will summon out whatever other one you want to use. Typically you want to summon Har. 2 main effects. 1, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, they're forced to send a monster from their hand or field to the graveyard. So it's almost like a mini Dark Law. And also once per turn, you can tribute 2 Generators to negate a card activation. So pretty cool. Pot of Duality here then, going to check the top 3 of our deck. Like I said, we don't special summon whatsoever during our turns, so we're not losing anything by doing so. We're going to swing in here with our Har. He's going to activate Spiral to reduce us by 1000, but that's fine. That's still enough for us to at least crash, and we don't really mind freeing up the monster zone, to be honest. So he's going to go into our opponent's turn here yet again. We're going to get some damage across the line. He's going to negate our summon for this turn by basically tributing by using his Ash Blossom to stop our summon. We do still have the ability to summon one during our opponent's turn by tributing our Lopter, but unfortunately our opponent doesn't have anything they can do. And basically what they realize here, you'll notice, I think they're just going to scoop right away. We just go straight to our end phase. We don't need to do anything else because we have the ability to summon a generator during every one of our opponent's turns. We summon out Hela and our 3 tokens. Hela will simply tribute a token to grab Har back from the graveyard. Our opponent does negate it using Fists of the Unrivaled Tinyi, which does interrupt our play, but again, we're too big. He can't get over us. Our opponent's really struggling to sort of keep up with our momentum. We're going to tribute a monster to go into our Utgarda. Utgarda, tribute 2 to banish any card on the field, and our opponent realizes that's pretty much game. They don't have the back row to keep up with us there. It's very, very difficult matchup for them, and they scoop it up then. So our opponent was playing the, you know, the free-to-play Spiral Phantasm deck. It's really, really cool. I'm going to have another video up on it sometime soon. Probably not very long after this video. But yeah, 100% very, very cool deck from our opponent. We just outlasted him. We have a very impressive sort of long game, if that makes sense, using this version of it. Using earlier iterations of it, you would have saw it during stream and stuff. One of the problems we had was longevity, whereas this particular version of the deck has fixed that. So very, very good grind game. Let's move into game number 2. Alright, in the game number 2, and we are going second this time. It didn't want to display all going first. Our opponent simply sets free back row and passes it over to us. We of course have the Lightning Storm, but he preemptively uses his Eldlich, as well as there can only be one, which is very interesting. I don't know if I agree with there can only be one in an Eldlich deck, considering you're locking yourself into having just a 1 zombie on the field, which I get it's probably more detrimental for your opponent, but either way, we're going to knock out the back row, including an impermanence, and we're going to set 3 of our own. So let's see what our opponent can do about this. He's going to use the Eldlich in the graveyard, banishing it to grab himself a golden land card, basically. We're going to flip up our boss stage. Boss stage, of course, is going to get negated by the Ash Blossom. Now, what we're going to do is use our continuous trap here to discard a card in response to our generator monster, and the effect of Ash Blossom becomes both players draw 1 card. So anytime they go to respond to one of your generators, you can discard 1 to change that effect to both players draw 1. So pretty interesting card, very, very good for control and negation. It means our field spell does in fact resolve. We get to summon out Lopter, and then our 4 tokens, and then again, as I said before, we have the ability at any stage to tribute one of these tokens to summon out a monster, but he actually hits us with a lava golem before we can do even that. So, you know, not exactly the greatest of starts here, but we still hold the momentum because we still hold the... Where'd the field spell go? That's the problem. Now, this is where the boss quest comes in. We get to discard... sorry, we don't discard. We shuffle a generator monster in our hand back into the deck to grab 2 generator cards. Now, quest is going to be the main method of recycling your generators in your hand. You can shuffle them back into the deck so they can be summoned off of the generator field spell card. You can also, again, the Dove, whatever his face was from the beginning of the video, you can also throw him in to achieve a similar effect, although not quite as powerful. But yeah, it's mainly there. Recycle your generators from hand as well as grabbing your necessary cards. I'm going to swing in to take out his Eldlich here, and we're going to pass turn. We still have our droplet, we still have our generator. Our opponent realizes very quickly what's going to go wrong for him here. We summon out Lopter as well as our 3 tokens. We're going to immediately use Lopter as soon as we get the chance. He's going to wipe out all our back row. We don't care about that. We are going to attribute a token to basically summon out the Utgarda from the deck. And our opponent realizes very, very quickly this is not going to go his way. We have the out to his board. He's going to summon out Eldlich the Golden Lord by sending his Conquistador to the graveyard. Eldlich hits the field, and what do? We tribute to banish, and we snowball from there, basically. So our opponent realizes very quickly this matchup is not going to go his way. He does not have the control needed to take out the Utgarda, and that's not a one-time thing. You tribute 2 generator monsters during either player's turn, and you can trigger that effect. And like I said, we're summoning generators every single one of our opponent's turns. Every time he summons an Eldlich, it disappears. That's where this deck wins the Eldlich matchup, completely destroys Eldlich unless you open a really bad hand. So very, very, very strong matchup against them in particular. Let's get into game number 3. Alright, getting into game number 3 here, we are going second, and we're playing against Floowandereeze, the most despised deck of the current metagame, at least in my opinion. And you know, that's what we're all here for. He's going to normal summon out the Rabina here after utilizing the field spell. We don't have any significant interruption in our hand, so we're just sort of hoping and praying here. We are going to try our best to out this deck, although it is very, very difficult. Definitely the most powerful deck in this event, without comparison, potentially the most powerful deck in the current metagame. He's going to summon out his M-Pen here, which is basically going to floodgate all of our attack position monsters that are special summoned. We can't use their effects. He's going to grab Rabina back to his hand. He's also going to grab a Floowandereeze spell or trap cards. He's going to grab the continuous spell card that allows him to tribute our cards. So he's going to activate it. He's going to return 2 winged beast monsters back to his deck to draw 2, which again, and set 1. So very, very powerful turn from our opponent here. He has the majority of his setup. We did, of course, draw into Generator boss stage. We're going to activate Terraforming to search for another. We do get Ash Blossomed, which is almost good for us. Like, we don't mind that whatsoever. And we have more than enough ways in our hand of searching for the spell, and we already have it. So it was this deck. When I was playing this particular version, I wasn't playing it quite the same way you saw at the beginning of the video, and this duel in particular led to a lot of the changes that I implemented. You know, with that being a few less searches for the field spell. I mean, we have it 2 consistently almost. We need to have some variation in our cards. We're gonna go for Imperm and Lompter here. We're gonna search our deck for a Generator to summon out of the field, as well as grabbing an Imperm. We're gonna grab Har here. Trap Trick's gonna banish an Imperm, set an Imperm. Pot of Duality then, of course, he's going to check at the top of his deck for 3 cards, going to add 1 to his hand. He adds the Ash Blossom, then Har's effect will activate and it kicks in, forcing him to send a monster to the graveyard. He sends a land save, which doesn't really cost him much. Our opponent's going to go to use the field spell, recognizing that that's basically going to spell the end. We're going to use Har to tribute to, negate and destroy the field spell. He still, of course, has his regular normal summon, but we didn't want to give him an additional line of normal summoning. So now we're going to use Impermanence. We're going to try and negate the Rabina to stop him from sort of comboing off from here. We're going to also negate that continuous spell for the turn, so he's not able to tribute over our cards. So ultimately, very, very good. He's going to go for the Floowandereeze trap card, of course. He has the ability to summon in addition through the trap card. He draws in the Razia, then tribute summon out the Razia to get returning some of our cards. He's going to return Lopter, the Trap Trick, and the face down crossout designator. So not exactly the best situation for us, but it is what it is. It's not the worst situation to be in either. We still do have something on the field to back us up. He's going to go in the battle phase here. He's going to swing in with M-Pin. He's going to discard a card to have our attack and defense. Unfortunately, he is able to get rid of Har, and it's not looking great for us. Unfortunately for us, that Generator boss stage is a very, very powerful field spell. We simply normal summon 1, set 2, and pass. This field spell is, of course, triggering every single turn. He draws into an Ash Blossom. He searched for the Ash Blossom last turn. He uses that Ash Blossom to try and negate our spell. This is when we're going to kick in with the crossout designator. We're probably not going to get another chance to use it. So we're going to use it to get rid of that Ash to make sure our Generator resolves. We really need that card here. We're going to summon out Utgarda. You can only summon, you control 1 of each Generator if you're curious. Not that you would summon anything else in that scenario. So now with Utgara on the field, we're going to be able to tribute 2 whenever we want to get banishing. We're going to tribute 1 of our tokens here to basically grab another Har from the deck. Har, of course, being the strongest of the Generator monsters, at least that's legal in this event. He's going to get Eaglin back to his hand, and then Rabina is going to get searching and allow him to normal summon the Eaglin in addition to his regular summon. So Eaglin comes on out. It's going to trigger the banished Rabina. Again, the way that these guys chain block each other by activating one after the other is very, very brutal. We also missed an opportunity to use our Har, but we do get a chance to use it now, I do believe, except I don't have the wit to do so. I believe I misread the activation prompts, but that's my bad. He has another copy of Razia, the Mega Monarch. That's really, really rough for us. We're going to tribute 2 here to banish that M-Pen. It's going to be the biggest problem for us. Even if we banish one of the Razias, it doesn't do anything to help us. He's going to flip all our monsters face down, and he's going to shuffle Duality back into his deck. He's going to additionally summon here, return the Wind Barrier statue back to the deck, put a Duality, check the top 3 of the deck, and grab any card he wants. He's going to grab the Impermanence. So we know he has impermanence. He's going to swing into our monsters. We're just slightly too small to defend against the Razia while our Lobster is face down. So there's not very much you can do about it. We do have the Trap Trick still, which we are now going to activate to grab Boss Stage from the deck. Boss Stage, of course, will search for our field spell. It will also allow our opponent to draw a card, but that is what it is. The Generator Boss Stage is going to summon Utgarda out to our field because our opponent has drawn a card, so we get an additional summon off of it, which is something at least. We draw into an effective healer, we'll swing in and take out the Eaglin. We might as well, we're not big enough to stand up to the Mega Monarch anyway, we might as well get some advantage out of it. So opponent's draw phase, they of course draw the monster, so we get our Lobster, we got our 3 tokens as well out to the field. So we are sort of boosted, but he does have the ability to simply take out the Lobster and then we all get weakened again. So we're not sitting in a super strong position. We do of course have our effective healer to negate that Rabina, but our opponent reveals a crossout designator of his own. He's going to banish the effective healer from his own deck to protect his Rabina to make sure it resolves. So again, very, very back and forth matchup here, but we are very much on the defensive. We're just trying to find an opportunity to break through this pressure that our opponent is putting onto us. Luckily, it's not the fastest deck in the world, so we do have a little bit of time to catch our breath. Eaglin, of course, being normal summoned, and the Rabina activating in the banish pile to return itself to hand. Eaglin then will search his deck for a level 7 or higher Winged Beast monster. From the deck, he's going to grab the Apex Avian. Whenever we see the Apex Avian, we start to realize the end is upon us here. He gets rid of our field spell to tribute summon his Apex Avian. He grabs the he's going to return once again 2 Winged Beasts from his hand back to the deck to draw 2 cards. Again, that continuous spell is completely broken. We're going to tribute 2 tokens to summon out the to use the effective Utgara. We don't have the ability to use our Lobster in the battle phase. Unfortunately, it is main phase only, which really does, again, slow us down. He swings in the Lobster, takes out our Utgara, takes out our token. We are left somewhat defenseless. We take a little 800 attack point slap to the face. He sets one, which I can only imagine to be something like an impermanence. I believe he did add one to his hand, but I cannot remember. We normal summon him out, Planet Pathfinder, more of a move of desperation. Swing in to take out the Eaglin, just for a little insult to injury. We of course tribute just to get negated. And having a look at the field, that is pretty much all she wrote for anyone who isn't able to tell. We're going to fast forward here to the end. We're not going to surrender. It was a very, very good duel. We really stood our ground here, but we are unfortunately going to have to take our lumps here. We're not going to deny him that. He swings in with his 2 Razia, and that is game. So Floowandereeze, of course, being a rough matchup, strongest deck in this particular metagame for sure, potentially the strongest deck in the overall ranked metagame as a whole, and it does not suffer whatsoever the restrictions of the no extra deck festival. Its only loss is that it no longer has the ability to play something like Prosperity, but that is a minimal loss compared to a lot of other decks losing the ability to play significant boss monsters. For example, Generators would be able to play the likes of the true king of all calamities, to play its big boss monster Jorgamonder, things like that. So Floowandereeze, of course, extremely detrimental matchup against every deck. There's no deck that matches up well against it because it's the best deck in the game. So what are you going to do? Either way, we're going to shift into the deck profile now, where we're going to talk a little bit more about how the deck works and why we made the changes we did in order to sort of suit this matchup a little bit better. Alright, so shifting into the deck profile here. First things first, what does the deck center around? As you can probably tell from the gameplay, the field spell. So we have 3 copies of the field spell here. 2 effects, one during your opponent's turn. If they add a card from their deck to their hand, you get to summon out a Generator monster from your deck. If you successfully summon a Generator monster during your opponent's turn, you fill all of your available monster zones with Generator tokens. So this is where the main power of the deck comes from, because all of the Generator monsters gain their effects by tributing Generators or monsters of their matching type. So you need to have lots of material, lots of Generators on board in order to activate these effects, and that's what the field spell grants you. So that's where it comes in. Now, who are these Generator boss monsters we keep referring to? First and foremost is our level 4 Lobster, Shadow of the Generator bosses. This guy essentially will boost all of your Generators by an additional 1000 attack and defense, and they're already kind of beefy. That's a passive effect as long as he's face up, including himself. So he himself is 2500 attack and defense, but only on your opponent's turn he can also tribute one of your generator monsters, including himself, to summon another generator from the deck. So you can play him during your opponent's turn through your field spell to then grab a generator of your choice. You can also play him on your own turn to tribute himself to search your deck for Mardell, Generator Boss of Light. Mardell, whenever summoned, will search your deck for a generator card or a plant monster. So if someone has a better imagination than me and can think of some plant combos to go with this, by all means. But if you have the Lobster in your opening hand and you want to go into it off of Mardell, into Mardell off of it, sorry, you can absolutely do that to grab something like your boss room or your field spell if you don't have it. Anything like that at all will do. We of course have Har, Generator Boss of Storms. This is your biggest boss monster. He can 1, have the miniature Dark Law effect of any time your opponent adds a card from deck to hand once per turn. You force them to send a monster from their hand or field to the graveyard. That's a passive effect with no cost. As cost, you can tribute 2 generator monsters to negate the activation of an effect and destroy that card. So very, very powerful. He's pretty much an Omni Negate as well as the mini Dark Law, so that's kind of nice. We have Utgarda, can tribute 2 generators to basically banish a card on the field, which is great. Phenomenal in the Eldlich matchup, provides a lot of strong pressure in other matchups that rely on heavy back row and stuff like that, for example. Amazing card, definitely your secondary boss monster. And lastly, you have Hela, who contribute a generator token to summon one of your generators from the graveyard. And it's only 1 token you tribute for her effect. So you can basically just replace one of your tokens with any of your monsters in the graveyard. If you want to protect any of your generators, it's this one, because she will just recur continually your other generators from the grave. And even if you run out of generators to summon from the deck, as long as Hela's on the field, you can continue to proc your field spell's ability to summon tokens by using her to tribute something to spawn a generator onto the field. Worst case scenario, she can sacrifice herself to resummon something and you can just prepare for a big lethal push. If you're concerned about the longevity of the deck, you can also play other things to recur them, like maybe Pot of Avarice and such. But that's the generator package pretty much. What adds consistency to it from a generator perspective, you have Generator Boss Fight. Boss Fight will activate a field spell from your deck, directly from your deck or graveyard, and then your opponent gets to draw a card. Of course, them drawing a card will trigger the field spell to summon your generator and then give you tokens. So the drawing of cards, yes, you give your opponent an extra card, but you get to also force activate all of your effects. Very, very strong. We have Generator Boss Quest. Shuffle one of the generators in your hand back into your deck to search for 2 generator cards with different names. What are you going to search? You're going to search your field spell, and you're going to search Generator Boss Room. If your opponent attempts to activate any card effect in response to the activation of one of your generators, you can discard a card to change that card's effect into both players draw 1. Now, not only does that mean essentially you're getting to negate almost free of cost, the only cost of course being your opponent gets to draw a card, this can also, if you didn't do so before, forcibly activate the boss stage as well. Again, just another factor, it's not going to happen a lot, usually you've already used that effect since, but it is of course something worth bearing in mind. You basically get to dark bribe them, give them a card in exchange for negating the one they've tried to use. Really, really good. It also stops them from negating things like Boss Fight, which you saw in the gameplay. Very, very powerful card to search off of your quest. We only play the one. It is a little bit of a brick if you draw into it. So what else are we doing to make it more consistent? We are running Trap Trick. Trap Trick, of course, is going to banish a normal trap from your deck to play another copy of that normal trap to the field. So we're playing it primarily for our boss fight. We have an additional 2 copies essentially of our field spell, and if we happen to already have the field spell, we can of course banish a copy of Infinite Impermanence to set another one. So that's a nice little combo there. You've always got a backup target if you already have the field spell. We're playing 2 Planet Pathfinders as well. Again, normal summon to tribute it to search for your field spell. You don't really use your normal summon very much in this deck, including your Pathfinders. You have 6 normal summons, which isn't a lot, and that's completely fine, so you can afford to sort of blow your normal summon on it. And lastly, we are of course playing Pot of Duality. Very rarely are you going to be special summoning on your turn, so Pot of Duality can assist you in drawing into some of your key combo pieces or some of your key board breakers, and that's an important note. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So that is essentially the main package. Now, what are some of these other funky cards you're looking at? You're looking at the Condemned Witch. Now, where does the Condemned Witch fit into this? The Condemned Witch on summon will grab a Forbidden Quick Play spell card from your deck. Now, of course, I'm running Forbidden Chalice. You can run Forbidden Droplet. Forbidden Droplet is just a little bit too cost intensive for this deck. You're already giving up, you're already having to manage your card economy very, very strictly. So Forbidden Droplet maybe not the best option. Of course, you can't, sacrifice tokens off of it to use its effects because the cards you're sending have to be sent to the graveyard. Of course, you can't send tokens to the graveyard. So it's not the greatest match in my opinion, just in terms of a card economy perspective. So Forbidden Chalice, basically 0 cost. You get to target a face-up monster and negate it. It's pretty handy, especially as a free search off of a normal summon. So I think Chalice is probably a better choice than Droplet in my opinion, but of course feel free to run whatever you want. There is of course also Lance if you want to run Forbidden Lance. Make one of your monsters unaffected by spells or traps. That's a pretty cool card as well. But why is it really here? So it's really here for its second effect. You contributed during your opponent's main phase to special summon a level 4 fairy from your deck, except for another copy of itself. And what level 4 fairy are we running? We're running Lopter, who just happens to be a fairy monster. So basically, if you draw into your Condemned Witch, it's essentially the same thing as drawing into your Lopter, except you get a Forbidden Chalice on top of it. So that's really cool. We like that. And again, another way to forcefully proc your Generator boss stage if you're unable to summon a monster off of its effect. If it gets ashed, for example, then that means you no longer have to rely on this summoning the Generator monster to spam out your tokens. You can now use the Condemned Witch. So that's another side benefit of the card. And what then finishes it up are selection of hand traps, board breakers and such. Of course, we're running the 2 Ash, 2 Veiler. We're running 2 of pretty much everything because we do want a little bit of variety. And we also want cross-out targets. We're running 2 copies of cross-out designator. You can run 3 if you want. 3 would be fine. We're running 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Ash Blossom. We're running 2 Cult by the Grave, 2 Infinite Impermanence, of course, 2 Solemn Judgment, which is just a powerful card. This can be anything. I'm a fan of Solemn Judgment. And lastly, 2 Lightning Storms. Now, the reason we're playing Lightning Storm in particular, I had cut this from the deck for a while, is not only because it's very, very powerful, this deck also struggles against heavy back row removal. So the reason I'm saying you can probably run a third cross-out designator is because you really, really want to have one in hand to protect yourself from a rogue Lightning Storm. Bear that in mind. That's one of the biggest weaknesses of the deck. You could even replace the other Solemn Judgment for, let's say, a Harpy's Feather Duster if you really wanted to avoid that back row hit. Something worth bearing in mind. Of course, you can do whatever you want with those last couple of slots. These hand trap slots are completely up to you. You get, what, 12 or so of them? 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12, basically. You get 12 to 14 slots, depending on your fondness of impermanence. 12 to 14 slots, you can do literally whatever you want with. But the rest of the deck I think is very, very, very solid. It is slightly different to how I would play the full version of it with the extra deck in tow. I already have that built as well, so keep an eye out for that. That may come after the event is finished. I do want to test out a whole bunch of decks in this event, so we're going to maybe postpone that. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck. That's my thoughts on it. That's everything I have to say. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more in-depth deck profiles like this, do like the video, leave a comment for what you want to see, and subscribe to keep on top of any up-and-coming content. We are, of course, going to be continuing to play in this event, as well as, staying true to a little bit of ranked here and there. And that's pretty much everything I have to say on it. So I'll see you all in the next one.